Welcome everybody to the celebration and poetry reading for the publication of a new book called Valleyfolk, which Rosalind is holding up right now. This is a project that three students who were former interns at the Book Arts Center also went on study abroad trip to Italy to work in studios to learn about printing. And then this year came back and worked on this project together. They compiled a group of poems by local young poets here in Kalamazoo. And they set all the poetry by hand using movable type. And they made handmade paper for the cover and inserts in the book, printed all the pages, also created linocut prints. There's some examples of the handmade paper and linocut prints, which are in there. So this was the work of Camille Day and Hannah Holmgren and Rosalind Napoca, who is showing us the book at this moment. There are, correct me if I'm wrong, 35 copies of the book. And some of them are hardback, like the one that Rosalind is holding up right now. There are also paperback versions, like this one, which are very similar. We're super proud of this. This has been a really great project, the first time we've tried to do this. The poetry is excellent, as you'll hear in a few moments. This was sponsored by a grant that we received from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, what they call their New Leaders Program, aimed at young artists and writers and creative people in their 20s. And so we acquired this grant, which allowed our three artists to create this book this year. They surpassed every expectation that we had. They worked throughout the year on this. And then, of course, like everything else, in the spring, wrench got thrown into the works. They had almost finished creating this book, and the last minute, the lockdown came, and so everything had to be put on hold until this summer, when they were able to come in and finish the edition. So now we'll have a poetry reading. So I'm going to turn this over to the three artists, and they can coordinate the reading, and we're really grateful that you've come tonight. Make sure that you go to our website if you're interested in, there are copies of the books that are available for sale on our website, which is in the notes, and you can find that information there. So I will turn this over to you guys and enjoy the reading.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, I think we have mostly everyone here, I think, that was supposed to be here. I think we're just gonna start at the beginning of the book, and our very first poem is by Sydney Linders, who I believe is on here.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so my poem is called Canning Lab Notes 2018, and I wrote it for my dad. So it's, "Come onto the porch with me," he said, "where 15 pounds of apples sat, waiting to get sauced. A pint's a pound the world around," he tells me, as he methodically, mechanically cuts the apples one by one. I take detailed notes of the ingredients and his mannerisms. I know someday I will be in need of both. Boil on medium heat, strain, put excess back through strainer to thicken. It's messy and confusing. You wouldn't find this in a glossy cookbook. Add cinnamon to taste, best done with a waxing moon. But when I look back on this night in years to come, I want to remember more than just the recipe. You can get all these steps online, he says when I read the notes back to him. And he's right. But some things you can't get just anywhere.
All right, thank you so much for that. I think we've got, I don't know if anybody can see me very well at this point, but we do have a lino cut to go with this. that I believe Roz did. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, our next poem is by Shannon Stevens, who I also believe is here.
Hello. All right, this poem is called A Letter to Womanhood. Grandmother, I've climbed out of the wolf's stomach and I am changed. Covered in hot, sticky blood and guts and semen, I've killed the smiling man that became a wolf. I've killed the child who learned with her mouth, sweet mouth, rounding out the sounds and shapes of questions you refuse to answer. What a pretty mouth, he said. What beautiful eyes, he said, wet and reddened and stained with tears. I faced the dark, humid chasm of the beast's belly, air thick like the musk beneath dirty, dirty blankets. I looked up from the red gaping wound and stared out at the stars for the snarling moon. I killed the smiling wolf and found myself changed. Dark hair covering my aching body, my senses sharpened like my red crusted nails. My mouth and lips and teeth became their own weapons. Womanhood is feral, grandmother. Why did you not tell me? Why did you hide the axe and the claws and the knowledge that the most dangerous creature in the woods isn't the wolf, but me? Thank you.
Snaps from everybody. All right, well, our next one is by Kate Wagner, who I'm not sure is here. I don't think she's here. But I believe, Camille, would you be willing to read that one for us?
Sure. Self-acceptance. Lightning, a cry, and a woman breaks in two. She learns how to split herself. One life and another, for everyone else and for herself, both offering fulfillment and both required for her to live peacefully. Rain, a cry, and a woman pools into one. She centers herself, converges, combines. One life unapologetically. This is the one she was meant for. She is happy to be.
And we do have another lino cut in here to go with that. All right, and our next poem is by Joe Madilinski, who I don't think is here either. But Roz, would you be willing to read that one for us?
Absolutely. Here is in the page for everyone to see. Jesus Christ, help me and give me strength, over time and through time. My goddamn fingernails never stop growing.
That might be my favorite one in here.
I love that one too. Everybody here is a fantastic writer also. I just want to say that.
All right, and next we have Gray by Katie Stone, and I do believe that she is here.
Yes, I am. So I wrote this one because gray is my favorite color, and I wanted to write about it, and part of it is inspired by my grandmother. Gray. Adjective. 1. In between black and white, the midpoint of extremes. 2. Describe something faded, ancient, tired, dreary, or something that once had a use but no longer does. 3. Ashes after a fire burns everything that never should have burned, the ash which swallows all other colors, leaving nothing. 4. A mother's hair when she looks at her child and does not remember, the feeling they get knowing next time she may not remember them again. 5. The sky when the clouds are a steel blanket, the days where there is nothing but sharp rain and cutting winds, and it is hard to remember the sun exists above it all.
Right. And we do have in here, we have our middle spread, our valley here that Roz, you did this one, right? Yeah. In green and black, which is also on our poster, which you can find on the website or on Facebook. And then next up, we have Canary by Allison Cordaway, who I do believe is here with us. I think you're muted.
I'm Allison, recent graduate. I ended up moving to Scranton, Pennsylvania, like The Office, in the middle of all of this. So I'm really glad that we were able to do this over Zoom. Yeah, and I wrote this about a really awkward conversation. Canary, I still remember what your best friend said 3 weeks before I decided to leave the mines. That dusty coal implication of the future, that imminent char. You know, he better keep you. You're so smart. Whatever job you get after college will keep him out of the coal mines. So I guess that would have made me a canary, caged, frightened. Canaries are the ones who do the hard work, the ones who die in the mines so that the men don't have to. Sniff out the danger, left open to the sacrifice. I decided to grab my future back by the scruff of its neck, free the canary, and let the miners do what they will, even if they die trying.
All right, thank you for that. And up next, we've got Death Wish by Noah Dahan.
Okay. Hopefully you can all hear me. Okay. Death Wish. Postmortem I request a death mask made to perfect likeness of my features in rapture, face first in a breeze. For convenience, constructed of plaster, not paper mache, which is cheap, but peels when come to pass the days. I further request pale flowers on my visage, painted by a brush tip so fine, mine old dead eyes will be blind to it. This, so I will never come under dress.
All right, our next poet did let me know that she wouldn't be here, so I will read Coffee Baptism by Delaney Novak. My mom always drank it with her breakfast. Oh, is she here? No? Somebody else? Oh no, never mind. All right. My mom always drank it with her breakfast. She'd smack her lips while chewing that gelatinous bowl of cardboard tasting oatmeal. I'd scrunch my tiny nose at the slightly eggy scent of clumpy yellowish milk, thinking, what could make this more inedible? Then she'd add a waterfall of pruny finger-looking raisins that smelled like the inside of my 98-year-old Granny Peg's house. Both of my parents drank it while reading the newspaper. I couldn't stand looking at that depressingly gray vehicle for even more depressing words. Plus, newspapers always smelled of mildewed chemicals left in a dingy bar. I couldn't touch them either, because they reminded me of paper used in the awful Disney coloring books. I'm sure those triggered my perfectionism. By the time I was old enough, I was too afraid to drink it. I'd spent 16 years pretending my Ovaltine-laden milk was the real deal, only to fall prey to the gonadotropin-releasing hormone of puberty. It put all sorts of fears in my head. If you drink it now, your virginity will be gone next. After a year of walking on the treadmill for 64 minutes each day, I thought I should drink it. I decided I'd have to take it black, because I wanted to feel like one of those white-haired men with purple spots on their hands, who sip it out of styrofoam cups at their grandchildren's ASO soccer games. Plus, I thought people who added sugar were surely the same heretics who said A- and A+ were basically the same thing. It tasted like I was drinking cigarette smoke. I felt the way I'm certain teens feel nowadays when they traipse around, puffing fruity-flavored vapor out of their sacred flash drives. As I swallowed the lukewarm liquid, I was immersed in the sludgy waters of the Jordan. The next morning, I only walked on the treadmill for 59 minutes. I think I tried raisins. We also have another lino cut to go along with this. It's a coffee craft. And the next poem actually is mine. This is Agriculture. The seeds. She leaves them all over our apartment. Packets choke every spare drawer, and sometimes I find them in my socks, sprouting up out of the drain in the bathroom sink, piled in the corners of the cupboard like mice-stolen grain. The flowers. She has never been able to keep them alive. They shrivel in the drought, and at night, as she breathes in the darkness beside me, I wonder if someday, 6 feet below the tender earth, they might finally take root between her lungs. The rain. I find her standing out on the balcony that faces the river, head tilted back to the clouds, soaked through, a creature of the earth in the cracked open sky, and I realize in one sudden flood that I cannot keep her. The fire. There is a fire in the apartment just a few days after she moves out, and just a few days before I do. They haven't rented it out since, as if the stains were too ugly, as if they could never get rid of the smell, as if nothing would ever grow there again. All right, and our next is by Chelsea Wellham, who I don't think is here. Roz, would you be willing to read this one for us?
This one does have a little lino cut by Camille. Eat your dinner. There are starving kids in Kalamazoo. I bite my nails when I'm nervous. Never nervous. Only antsy and cluttered and wondering if I'm a hoarder. Like my grandma and aunt who kept their secret in a locked motorhome that leaked sewage every time it left the driveway, turning my family vacation into a staycation, where my parents went back to work and my siblings and I packed up the loading vans to move again. I rack up the number of times I've moved, stacked them on shelves like trophies, the kind I used to get in elementary for participating. The trophy they gave me in track was titled Raccoon, in honor of me collecting discarded shit from the roadside on group runs. I had learned that from my grandpa, who is never wasteful and eats all the food off of his plate. The boys think it's cute how I eat all the food off my plate, and their leftovers, too. I don't tell them it's a survival technique. I remember, paying bills is more pressing than groceries.
All right, and very last but not least, we have Zachariah Williams.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, I am falling off of the ledge. Shall I hold on?
And this poem is very visual. I believe Roz is holding it up as well. And that is all of our poems. I really want to thank all of the poets who contributed. Literally, without you, this would not exist. And we're so grateful that everybody submitted really great work and that they trusted us to turn it into something wonderful. I did ask everyone if they had any other poems that they wanted to share while we were all here. So, you know, poets, do you want to share any other poems?
I have one I could do.
Yeah, go ahead, Noah.
Okay. This is called Something About a Pleasure. Slipped mist? No, slipped disc. Look, his droning was peach fuzz on the brain. My own face is all I can recall, refracted at the edges in some nameless doctor's head mirror. No trouble, simply displeasure. An October wind snuck under a bus shelter and pleading at the hem of my pedal pushers. Did you know you have a bruise? There behind your knee? Poke it and it'll turn into a rainbow, yellow radiating from a purple eye and seeming a sweet dream in hindsight. That's one way to turn arsenic to spirits. Pleasure and displeasure and hitting the seafloor is an example of a pleasure. It's the falling I could really do without. Falling is quiet moments with my paper gown spread across a plastic upholstery. It is stillness and antiseptic sterility. It is the fucking MD, not a drop of blood on his white coat. Was he even a real doctor? Hell, I guess I can be treated by a fake. What difference would it make if his coat came from Halloween City? Crap, where was I? Pleasure and displeasure. Something about that. Something about the quiet still and the slow descending limbo.
Wonderful. Would anybody else like to read something?
Katie,
Yeah, I had one.
go ahead.
It's called The Ballerina. The Ballerina. Navigating our relationship is like dancing on violin strings. A ponderously weary waltz, a woefully painful performance. The tempo increases, andante to allegro. Bass drums and timpani beat on my diaphragm. My corset is too tight, my bun too secure, my lips are stained with wine. I beg for a break from the spotlight. The strings dig into my soles. My body collapses onto the stage. The costume will get wrinkled. I am removed from the stage. The cherry curtains close as I am allowed to leave. Bloody footprints like rose petals lead to an empty bedroom.
Anyone else?
I could do one.
Yeah, go right ahead.
This poem is called Cold. Cold is an absence. So when I say that I am cold, I say that I am empty. My core is weightless, lightless, pulling at every corner, at every line. It will consume you. For both our sakes, do not come near me, embrace me. I shall swallow you whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Any more poets?
I've got one that I'd like to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a title. I'm not good at titles. Allow me just to feel it. All, everything, each drop of everything. Take away my questions and stare into my being. Be an empty sky screaming at a sky full of stars. Stop the thinking, the overreaches of a mind that screams and bleeds for words, only to cease existing in their own. Let me be the creator and the art. That's it.
Any more from our poets?
I have one. I'll do one.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is called, right now it's called Nameless. This is a very new poem though, so I don't know if that's what's gonna stay. You know how it is. So, you don't have a name for what plagues you, so others fill its place. The ones people give you and others that you surmise yourself. Lazy, uncaring, quirky, a lot, failure. Did you know that 51 is divisible by 17? Life is doing a task list in a room with blasting music while children each try to show you something. Shoving my square peg into the round hole marked expectations. What do you mean you haven't finished? Everyone else has already moved on to the next hole. You seemed so much smarter than that. You know, I never really thought that poetry was going to take off for me. I mean, like, obviously, like, it has, because, like, I'm in this book and, like, I'm doing this reading, and, like, it just, like, when I, like, think of, like, my favorite poets, like, I just don't see myself in common with them. Shut up! People don't like it when you talk too much. And when they're sad, They expect you to say something, the right thing, or they'll cry. And they only cry when they're sad. Quick, say something, tell a joke. You're good at that. But that's the limit of you people can handle, not the constant misplacing or the messy car or the interrupting or the constant crying. Nobody cares that you're trying. We've all got problems, so what makes you so special? Oh yeah, I could totally like build a birdhouse by myself. I've actually been bored recently, if you can believe it. But there is nothing to say. You go about your day, nameless.
Thank you for that. Any more from our poets? I guess I'll share another one then. This is titled Me and Other Types of Bomb Shelters. Time doesn't slow down. Everyone is always talking about the stretch and pull of tragedy, the endless fractured moments weaving in between one another, taffy or honey or blood. But she was reading a book in the back seat when the car rolled 3 times, and I can tell you that time did not slow itself for her. It did not cradle her within repeating seconds. It could not spare her such mercy. And 8 years old, paintbrush clutched in pudgy fingers, my mother sits me down at the table, teaches me how to create a color wheel, primary, secondary, tertiary, says, these are our colors, this is how we bleed, and drive past my childhood home and wonder what they've done with the sandbox in the backyard, crowded with weeds and stray garden mulch, how they've redecorated the basement. I remember being 3 and elbow deep in oil paint. This isn't my home anymore. My home is populated now by different photographs and altogether different miracles coaxed from boxes of pasta, but I can't help wondering when they painted over my mother's blue front door. And you say surviving is preservation, but surviving is reconstruction. It isn't how well you weather the storm, the crash, the explosion. It's how fast you can remake everything it destroyed. And sometimes I think we are all rebuilding the foundations of happiness in the craters around grief where there used to be houses. Any more from our poets?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I have 2. There was a jump that summer. That irresistible crunch of a fig jam grilled cheese on a blue sky Saturday afternoon was nothing compared to my mother's laughter. That jump of a giggle, assertive cheer, her eyes kind in their resonance. We longed for an uninterrupted afternoon, wading down the streets of Traverse City, not minding our misdirection, meandering down cracked sidewalks lined with pine and maple, until we found ourselves in fields of lavender and chrysanthemums, behind a shop selling bars of goat milk soap and Michigan Beach sand scrub. We could have decided not to leave, you know. How funny it is that we always forget that choice. Okay, I've got one more. The email reads no subject. He says that loving the idea of me, this is visual, the idea of me is in parentheses, is the last thing he felt really sure of. As if every other day hinged on some shaky, invisible plan that each day might not even happen without me. These days have passed into years now, and I am not quite sure what the problem is. How and where this shaky plan has taken root. Why every so often he reaches back into this tiny, guilty space that never fully existed. Maybe this time I will stop letting him reach. He says that he's sorry to check in yet again. Over and over, he reaches back into this idea of me. He expects to lift up the small rock of my life, take a peek underneath, and still find the girl he knew 5 years ago. That awkward space between high school and the rest of our lives is a rock thrown in a window that's already been shattered many times before. And I know it's not good for us to speak. I maintain these platonic pauses where I hope to drift silently into the background of his life, slip into the yearbook of the past, closed and tucked on a high shelf until the dust settles and the quiet finally declares itself to the world. He asks me how I am, and I know he means it. I know he wants all the details, that small, achy joy of a joke well told. And I do believe his interests in this life are genuine. Believe him the way I did at 17. But the honest in this interest is malicious, a desire to win over with details. So his questions always leave me feeling felt up, violated. And I no longer know how to answer these questions. I no longer know how to lend words to this tiny, guilty space when he reaches back, yet again, as I lay in bed next to a man who loves me. How lovely and oppressive it must be for him to stay this consistent. Again, I will not respond. Okay. Sorry, that was long.
Oh, love it. I think that was everybody.
Do we want to talk a little bit about Valleyfolk?
Sure.
About the process? So correct me, Jeff, if you're there, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are actually on sale. Shameless plug, y'all. These are actually on sale at the Kalamazoo Book Art Center. And there are, I think there's a few hardcovers left and quite a few soft covers. Jeff, could you tell us how much they are for the hardcovers and the soft covers?
Thanks. I wish I could.
Thanks.
Katie would
Sorry.
know. But I can tell you that if you go to the chat right now, there are links to the website, and you can find information about the books and how to order them and the price on the website. So they're right there.
Thank you. Fantastic. So, Camille, Hannah, do you have anything to say about the experience?
It was a lot of work, but so worth it. You know, we started this kind of not really knowing what we were doing with it, and kind of through the process of receiving everybody's poetry and kind of coming up with a cohesive title and idea for what this would be, I think we realized that our ambitions might have been a little bit too big in the very beginning.
We're dreamers.
Yeah, well, I think with some good advice from Jeff and Katie, we, you know, kind of whittled down our ideas to something more doable. And, you know, not to like toot our own horns or anything, but I think it turned out really well.
So we have the paper on the cover was handmade, and we made the paper on the inserts as well, like Jeff said in the beginning. And for those who don't know, hand setting type, so each letter and every single poem on every single page are their own tiny little letter that we have to put all together and then put those lines together and then print it. So it was quite a process, but everything was put in this book with love, and we really appreciate it because I know all of you poets really put your hearts on the page, and we left it in this. I think Camille, Hannah, and I left our hearts in the studio where we made this. So
yeah, actually, if I can talk about Ledge for a hot second.
Oh my gosh, please do.
Sorry.
It was a super cool, like, really challenging process. So for that, I set, like, I am falling off the ledge, and then at the bottom it says ledge, ledge, ledge. I like set that all in one and ran it through the press, and then I set another line and ran it again, and then another line and ran it again. I think I probably put that poem through the press 3 or 4 times, and it's actually attached to the coffee baptism one, so it's like on the extra long paper too that I ran through the press. It was a cool experience, and like fun figuring out how I was going to make it look like the typewriter font.
Thank you for doing all of that work.
Yes.
And also, Roz and Camille, thank you for doing these beautiful lino cuts. I am a writer, I am not a visual artist. And so these two took the helm on making all of this beautiful artwork for us.
Thank you.
And I think we'd also like to thank Jeff, Katie, Lori, and everybody at the KBAC for putting us together, because I feel like our team here was really really quite adept at pretty much everything we were able to do, and we were a good team because we had a lot of different talents come to fruition here. So yes. So thank you guys. And I see that in the chat, if you don't know how to use Zoom, it's at the very bottom. You should be able to click on the chat icon, and there is a link to an image of the soft cover, and you can also go to Kalamazoo Book Arts Center's website at calbookarts.org, I believe, to learn a little bit more about this book. There's a lovely little spiel on there.
And purchase one.
I want to add to that I think a lot of times people, because nowadays we're so used to the idea of being able to type something on a computer and press a button and out it comes out of a printer, that it couldn't be emphasized enough how much work the three people did to do this. Roz mentioned that every poem you take one letter at a time, put it in place, lock it all together. But even beyond that, every single page had to be printed one piece of paper at a time. So you can imagine, I'm not sure how many pages are in this, but and then you have to get them on the page at the right place. You have to get the poems to back one another up properly. The title pages, the table of contents. I mean, we're so used to everything being so easy now, but they did it the old-fashioned hard way. And it was a lot of work, and it took a long time for them to accomplish this. All three of them have some experience doing this before from having worked at the Book Arts Center. They also all went to Italy and were trained there by master printers in Italy. So they also had experience there, which made it such a great thing, because although we were there to offer advice, I felt that they could do this by themselves without really any problem. And they proved us right and came up with a book that was just amazing. So we're very pleased about it and happy and glad you were all here to help us celebrate it.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody, for coming, and to all of our poets. Like I said before, without you, this would not exist. So thank you for trusting us with your poetry and for joining us to read it. Any closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you for choosing our poems and stuff. It when this came in the mail, it was a complete surprise, because I kind of forgot in all the craziness that's been going on, and just opening it up, I was just completely taken in by just how beautiful. And this is the first time I've actually had a poem of mine put into a book, so I can finally say I'm a published author or writer or poet. So that was just an incredible moment for me to see it, and the fact that it's in such a beautiful handmade work of art is just great. So thank you. It was really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I really loved being a part of this, and I can't even imagine all of the work, and including the line of cuts. It was just an amazing experience. So thank you.
I am proud to call this my first publication, and I will honor it and cherish it forever.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. I love it so much. It's quickly become my most prized possession, to be honest. So thank you so much for making it, and yes, including me in it.
Yeah, thank you. I was also when it came in the mail, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. So thank you guys.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It's so cool. I'm sorry, but it was a huge pain in the ass to do.
Artistic challenge.
We loved
Artistic
every minute of
challenge.
it, even if some of it might have been aggravating. Yeah, well, this is our baby. So thank you guys for celebrating it with us. And, unless anybody else has anything left to say, then I think that might be it.